up, you guys? Heavy Metal 95 here. Today we're going to be doing revisiting a classic from the movie Nirvana, because this is the one that we're going to be doing. And this time this is going to be on the movie. It's called Rock and Rule, a 1983 musical sci-fi animated fantasy movie which became a cult classic. Sorry about the camera, and don't mind about the light though. However, this movie was released theatrically in the US as well as a small limited run in theaters as well. So without any further ado, let's dive into the plot, because this is Rock and Rule. So the plot in the movie Rock and Rule begins with how Mock, who is a legendary rock musician, returned to ohmTown searching for the special voice which could unleash a powerful demon from another dimension. In his car, prepared by the Schleppler brothers, whenever he wants to figure out a way to raise a demon to destroy the world and immortalize himself in the process. We get to the small how this happened in ohmTown, a remote area near the ohmTown power plant. Meanwhile, at the nightclub, Omar, Dizzy, Stretch, and Angel perform in a rock group band at the empty venue with the empty audience. When Angel performed her romantic ballad to the audience, as Mock, hearing her song, realized her voice is what he needed, of how this happens. Then we get to the part where at the makeout point, when Omar and Angel were up to this, until Sleazy invited an invitation card from Mock inviting Angel as well as Omar, Stretch, and Dizzy to Mock's mansion outside of ohmTown as the roller skate, where Mock introduced himself along with his assistants as the roller skating Schleppler brothers, Toad, Sleazy, and Zip. It's where Mock incapacitating Stretch and Omar with the hypnotic Edison balls as he takes Angel a stroll through the garden and convincing to join him. She was unaware if she refuses to abandon her band, but this wasn't long before Mock kidnaps her and takes his blimp to Nuke York, where he's at the concert going on. Following this happens, how Stretch, Dizzy, and Omar figured out of what happened to Angel, so they followed the blimp by stealing a police car in that scene, as well as where they reached to Nuke York when they were caught by the border guard. As Angel wanted to attempt to escape with the help of the sister of the Schleppler brothers, Cinderella, or Cindy herself, of how they're figuring out through the vent of how Angel has overhearing Mock confirming his plans with the computer, informing that the only way to stop the demon is one voice, one heart, and one song. How Mock could figure out the way of how this happened, figure out who did it, and the computer replied to Mock that no one will stop it. Just as Angel and Cindy escaped the building, as they were heading to this dance club called Club 666, unaware that the Schleppler are following them, as well as considering that Dizzy's aunt Edith bailing Omar and his friends from of the club. Considered Angel and Cindy are intercepted, taken back to Mock's apartment. When Omar eventually ran into Mock, when Mock uses an impersonator to impersonate Angel, fallen for Mock by manipulating. And this how Mock captured the band and torturing them with the giant Edison ball to force her to agree on his demands, manipulating, brainwashing Omar, Dizzy, and Stretch with how they send them back to ohmTown. But this wasn't long until the news came out about how Mock's concert has been not going things right, of how it destroyed Carnegie Hall in that scene. So Mock has to relocating his final concert venue to summon a demon. When he relocates to the power plant in ohmTown, which has more enough energy, as one of the Scheffler brothers, Zip, expressing his childlike doubt about how the difference between good and evil, and this is promptly Mock rudely dismissing both on the concern and Zip's feelings. So during the concert at the power plant, the power surge causing overloading all of ohmTown, where Omar and his friends are out of the hypnosis when they were performing at the small nightclub venue in ohmTown. Dizzy has figuring out that he found a poster advertising Mock and Angel's concert. When Stretch had to agree with Dizzy to rescue Angel, confessing Omar saw Mock and Angel together, Dizzy tries to tell him the truth about it, particularly about how this has going on. But this is how, when Omar refusing to help Dizzy and Stretch to stop the Mock concert, and then they go off with a stolen police car once again, of how the crash at the concert was too late, how Mock forcing Angel to sing and open a portal to the demon's dimension, considered her wrists were wired to the circuit board, which this almost could be like Mortal Kombat to the point out 12 years earlier. As Mock summoned the demon, and at the concert, when this is before Omar tries to save Angel, when the demon can turn on, if the demon can attack Omar, but Zip sacrifices himself to save Omar's life. As Angel had to sing, trying to sing to banish the demon, but then Omar joins in harmony with Angel to weaken the demon when it drives the demon back to the dimension. Mock is thrown into the portal by Toad, who thinks that when Toad was avenging Zip's death, when that's how it feels, when it's how it's like whenever, or it's how avenging the brother's death in that movie. Makes sense though. And this all has happened because Toad has turned his back against Mock, avenging Zip's death. However, in the Canadian version, Zip has woken unconscious as well. This all has happened as well. As this how Mock could speak, particularly that the magic that there is no one if the demon can stop, but then he fell into the portal, plunging in for his death as the portal sealed shut. So the audience have believed that the confrontation between the concert's theatrics, as the band continues the song in triumph, as the nightclub manager of ohmTown, Mylar, announcing the band as the new super rock sensation. And that's how you end this movie as well. Considering for the fact this is a well-written story of how this goes, and to be fair, this is well how this producing like this, because I just wanted to come by for the movie like Rock and Rule, as how this a good story of how this it's all about as well. And this is what you call a good plot for this movie. Just like considering how Kiss Me's the Phantom of the Park had a good storyline, has got to this. Same with Rock and Rule as well. And it's particularly still a better plot than Rock-a-Doodle as well. But as for the thing for the movie like Rock and Rule is that there's only a difference, because there's some references to satanic numbers, like the nightclub, Club 666. I don't get how they reference to like these satanic numbers as well, because this whole thing as well. However, but even if it was Club 666, then everybody felt like coming out of a Venom concert where there'd be headbangers and mosh pitters and everywhere. No disco, no funk, but only like headbangers as well as like mosh pitters and headbangers there. If only this would imagine what Club 666 would have been like for this as well. The rumors that they were going to have a soundtrack for Rock and Rule, but apparently it didn't go well because due to the whole source has been destroyed in a fire, especially for no wonder why they never released Rock and Rule soundtrack on CD or vinyl. However, some of the songs were promoted in the audio promotional cassette as well, because that's particularly whatever you want to come by for the soundtrack for the movie like Rock and Rule, because we got another gold mine like this as well, because for the way of how you want to discover of how you're figuring out a way about the soundtrack in Rock and Rule as well. Consider that this was the first animated feature film from Nelvana to be produced in English, and this is how the cost of the million production at the box office failure was nearly $8 million for this movie as well, to the prior of how, even though it was first released on home video by MGM UA Home Video on both VHS, Betamax, and Laserdisc, which is basically the US version, there were bootleg copies of the film were sold at comic book conventions, as how this is going on, for whatever you want to know. We do get the Unearthed Films DVD release, which includes The Devil and Daniel Mouse, which is the TV special inspiration for Rock and Rule, as whatever I wanted to come by. Considered both the DVD and the Blu-ray from Unearthed Films was long out of print, and it's costing you an arm and a leg to get a copy of like that these days as well, because that's very interesting. Whenever I just wanted to come by on these movies that were originally released on home video, which they were long out of print though, because I must say, and there is also the comic book from Marvel Comics Super Special for the movie Rock and Roll, which is a tie-in thing as well. Some of the clips of the movie of Rock and Roll, like the songs that were featured on Night Flight as well, because even though, because this is got how the movie gotten a limited release in theaters as well for the movie as well, especially for this movie like Rock and Rule as well, because no wonder why, if we can only this how that wanted to, how they include the Canadian cut version, especially though the original print was destroyed in a fire from the original VHS source material for the second disc on the DVD of Rock and Rule when it was first released on DVD by Unearthed Films on June 7th, 2005, because this is how whenever I come by for movies that were like out of print for the movie like Rock and Rule, when it was first released through United Artists by April of 1983 on these two versions as well, like the US version, considering when it was unable to find an audience at the box office, because this was quickly released to VHS and Laserdisc and Betamax as well for the movie like Rock and Roll, for whatever I wanted to come by for this movie like accordingly. The music in the film Rock and Roll is basically has that synthesizer score from Melanie Brown, when she has that composed on synthesizer, which sounds like something coming out of a Flock of Seagulls video, or any other bands that have synths like that. No guitars or music score like that. Just considering, no wonder why this had the synthesizers in that. However, we do have the music from, most of them are mostly rock groups and new wave and all, but there's also one funk soul music group on there. Like, say from artists like Cheap Trick, Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, Debbie Harry of Blondie, and Earth, Wind, and Fire, even though Earth, Wind, and Fire is actually a funk soul music group as well. It's anything new for this as well, just so giving you for the fact for the movie like Rock and Rule. The characters in the movie Rock and Rule has like that little element of how this parallels Disney like in feel. It's nothing like Ralph Bakshi or Don Bluth or nothing like that, but this basically is more of a early parallel to Disney, like a Goofy movie, you know, like funny animal characters and all that. Like, say for example, the character Stretch from the movie Rock and Rule is basically a take on Pauly Shore's character from a Goofy movie. The drummer Dizzy is basically an inspiration for Max's friend PJ in a Goofy movie. So this is basically like the proto animation for a Goofy movie. However, even though Goofy movie was released later on in 1995, 12 years later in the 90s as well. For those who haven't been wondering, because I just wanted to give you for how this parallels of a Goofy movie. As for the character Omar, he's basically based on James Dean's character, with how he riffs James Dean's dialogue in A Rebel Without a Cause, which is another classic movie as well, for those who haven't heard as well. As for the character Mock from the movie Rock and Rule, they wanted to hire the voice actors to consider for the role of Mock, such as the Rolling Stones vocalist Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, the King of Pop himself, Tim Curry, or Sting of the Police, but the budget couldn't afford to have the authors to do the role like that. Either way, unless they could have hired Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, or King Diamond of Merciful Fate, or Kevin Hayborn of Angel Witch, but instead they had Don Franks to do the voice of Mock from Rock and Rule, considered that the budget couldn't afford to have, and they couldn't hire David Bowie to do the voice of Mock in Rock and Rule, but apparently David Bowie later went on to do the role as Jareth in The Labyrinth as well, for those who haven't wondered as well. The movie was animated by Nelvana, which is known for their work such as The Care Bears as well, for those who haven't wondered, which ironically, it's the more iconic thing as well. But technically though, that this movie had gotten the whole thing for the whole, how this is more different aside, along with its other way, considering how, for the thing of how Nelvana also did their previous work, such as The Devil and Daniel Mouse, which is basically the inspiration for the film like Rock and Rule, as whatever I can want to come by for this, because truthful thing, because I just wanted to say, no wonder why this movie was released in Canada by Orion Pictures, but this was also released by MGM UA Entertainment Company in the United States, when it was given a limited theatrical release run as well, especially in the 80s, because that's whatever I wanted to come across for the movie like Rock and Rule. For the record though, there's always two different versions of the film Rock and Rule. One, you had the US theatrical version, because for the character Omar in the movie Rock and Rule, he was voiced by Paul Limott, who is known for the movies such as Francis Ford Coppola's American Graffiti with Harrison Ford in that one. So American Graffiti fans could take note on that. However, in the Canadian alternate CBC version, it was the original voice actor Greg Salata, who is the voice for Omar in the Canadian version of the film Rock and Rule, when it was originally broadcasted it on Canadian Broadcast Corporation, of how he voices the character in the Canadian version. He has, like, they give him like a Brooklyn, New York accent in that movie, though. However, the Canadian version, the CBC version, was restored, considered the VHS transfer was, like, lost and destroyed in a fire, but however, they got the source as the remaining as well. How this has ever come by from contemporary video to, like, bootleg VHSs as well, and it's particularly for the original transfer to work with whenever they restore for the movie like Rock and Rule. Considered in the working title, the movie Rock and Rule was under the working title as Ring of Power. As for the dialogue in the movie Rock and Rule, they originally wanted to casting how Howie Mandel was going to have to voice all of Stretch's lines and all there, but when he first moved to Los Angeles while moving from Toronto for some reason, so they hired Greg Duffel voicing all of Stretch's lines when they did the dialogue for Rock and Rule, considering, and then how they casted Susan Roman as the voice as Angel in the movie, which you may remember her as the voice as Melissa Raccoon in the remaining seasons of the Raccoons in this particular movie, like Rock and Rule as well, for those who haven't been wondering as well. Because I just wanted to come by for the dialogue in the movie Rock and Rule, it's just how this seems going quite well, though. But overall, the movie Rock and Rule is a well-known thing, because my thoughts on this movie, because I consider this as to be one of my all-time favorite movies coming out of the 80s as well. Even though I have seen this movie on VHS many, many times as well. So if you want to binge watch a movie like Rock and Rule, I highly recommend it. If you have it on VHS, Laserdisc, or DVD, or you can watch it on Internet Archive, it's free though, because I have seen this movie like so many times. A 10 out of 10 for this movie. So that's going to be it for my review on my revisiting review of Rock and Rule for today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, especially if you're new to the channel. Smack the like button if you enjoyed the video. Hit the notifications bell button for more surprises if you miss anything new. Leave a comment in the comment section below. And that's all I have what I got. So this is Heavy Metal 95 signing off, and thank you for watching my video, and I'm glad you liked it. Hope you enjoy it. Hope to see you soon for the next video. Be sure to stay safe and stay healthy. Hope you all have a great day. Take care. Goodbye for now. Rock on for this classic movie like Rock and Rule.